Lights, camera, action.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Welcome back to our podcast. We are excited to be covering Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I actually had not seen any of the Mission Impossible movies before this one, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. So I'm excited to go over it.
Yes, it is a classic. I love it. It was an immediate hit as soon as it released. I remember seeing it in theaters, so I'm really excited to talk about this today.
Well, I am just going to jump right in. So Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol was released on December 15th of 2011. It was directed by Brad Bird, yet again.
One of our favorites.
Yes.
Love that guy.
It is starring Tom Cruise, Paula Patton, Simon Pegg, Jeremy Renner, Léa Seydoux, and Michael Nyqvist. It was distributed by Paramount Pictures. It has a runtime of 2 hours and 13 minutes. It's rated PG-13. Its budget was $145 million, and box office total was $694.7 million. So it was quite successful.
Yes, very nice.
I scrounged, but I could not come up with many fun facts. So this is going to be our shortest one yet, I think.
Yeah, there actually wasn't a whole lot of production details either, which is very interesting to me because the Mission Impossible movies are pretty popular.
Right.
Which granted, this movie was like breathed life back into the franchise. Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3 were all good and well received, especially number 3. But Mission Impossible 4 was like a mega hit, which led to 3 more movies after it that have all been huge successes as well. But I'm just surprised. I really, going into it, was expecting there to be more on both sides.
Yeah, and I mean, all of that, you know, the popularity of it and how it really revamped the franchise, like, would lead me to believe that there would be more things online, but...
Right. Yeah, I mean, Jake Peralta in Brooklyn Nine-Nine references Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol multiple times. Like, and that's just one instance of where the movie was reaching into pop culture, I guess. Mm-hmm. You know, so we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but I was expecting more.
Yes. So this might just be a shorter episode, and that's okay. So the facts that I do have, first one, I think this is pretty well known that Tom Cruise performs a lot of his own stunts in movies, the majority of his own stunts. So this includes the sequence where Ethan Hunt scales the outside of the Burj Khalifa tower himself without the use of a stunt double. So the Burj Khalifa, for those of you who don't know, it's a tower and it's the tallest building in the world. And
I think that's no longer true.
Are you serious?
It was for a long time after it was constructed, but I think the One World Trade Center in New York City now is the tallest.
Oh, well. At the time, it was the tallest building in the world.
It was for many years.
And it was 2,722 feet tall, or is, I should say. And Tom Cruise basically dangled outside the tower. He wasn't at the very top. He was about 1,700 feet up. But this allowed Brad Bird to get all sorts of great camera angles because obviously with a stunt double he wouldn't have been able to do that. So the camera work is awesome and you get to see a lot more than you probably wouldn't have otherwise if Tom Cruise hadn't done those stunts.
Yeah, and that's something that I have major respect for Tom Cruise for, as well as anybody who really does their own stunts. There aren't a whole lot of actors, at least not big actors, especially like Tom Cruise is like the action movie star, at least in today's world. And there aren't a whole lot of people that do the majority of their own stunts anymore. I know Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. He did the majority of his own stunts, as well as Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. He did his own stunts. That was actually, sidebar, that was contingent in his contract to come back for Spider-Man No Way Home, was that they had to allow him to do all his own stunts.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But on that note, Tom Cruise actually has his own production company that is a part of every Mission Impossible movie. And the reason that he founded his own production company to be a part of these movies was purely so that he could do his own stunts.
Really?
Yes, because at the time, I don't remember when it was founded. It was prior to this movie. But he liked doing stunts. He liked doing all his own stunts. And he was a quickly growing Hollywood superstar. And so, executives and producers and whatnot would not allow Tom to do his own stunts because they said, no, you're too valuable of an asset. We are preventing you. We will not allow you to do this. And so he had enough of it and said, you know what? I'm just going to buy the production for my own production. I will not sign on to do any movie unless it's with my production company where I'm able to be my own boss and I can decide if I'm going to do my own stunts or not.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And I know we're not talking about Mission Impossible 5 or 6 or 7, any of those, but each one has usually a huge stunt in it. And I just have mad respect for Tom. Like in Mission Impossible 5, he did a halo jump, which
Isn't that where he got pretty seriously injured? Or was that a different time?
It was Mission Impossible 5, but it wasn't from this stunt. He broke his ankle on Mission Impossible 5.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it was 5. It might have been 6. Regardless, he did a halo jump, which is more than just skydiving. It's you're basically I don't know if it's the stratosphere or what, you're very, very high up to the point where you have to have your own oxygen. You have to have an enclosed helmet with an oxygen breathing apparatus and everything. And you have to be military certified. It's a big thing. Not everybody can do it, but he went through the training to do it. And so when you watch the opening to Mission Impossible 5, when you see the halo jump, that's actually Tom Cruise. And Henry Cavill, who's a bad guy in that movie, another star, he also halo jumps, but his face is CGI, and that whole sequence and everything. So just a lot of respect for Tom and doing his own stunts. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. My next fact is that this was the first live action movie that Brad Bird directed. So we have now covered his directorial debut in animation and his directorial debut in live action.
Yes, and we're actually, so far, we've moved sequentially through all of his movies. We've done The Iron Giant, his very first movie. We did The Incredibles, Ratatouille, and now Mission Impossible 4. Those are pretty much all in a row of his first 4 movies.
Yeah.
Which I got to say, that first 4 movies, those are all amazing movies.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So kind of on that note, Brad Bird, when he was directing this, he decided that he wanted every gadget used in the film to either break or malfunction, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got the glove that he's climbing with, that starts malfunctioning. I'm trying to think. I'm blanking on other ones.
The contact that scans the documents that kind of got messed up in Jeremy Renner's eye. Mm-hmm. The thing that it was making the mask.
Yes, and that
completely malfunctioned. Yeah, I'm sure there's others, but
yeah. So I thought that was an interesting choice. But
yeah, it is. It creates drama.
Yeah,
and stakes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last fact is that Ghost Protocol was the most successful Mission Impossible movie at the time it came out. And to date, it is the second highest grossing Mission Impossible movie.
Do you know what the first is?
I probably should have looked that up. I can look it up real quick. Okay. The most successful one was the 6th one, Fallout.
Okay.
Which was released in 2018.
Yep, that makes sense. That one was pretty good. Which you've only seen Mission Impossible 4, right?
Yeah, and like
That's
when
what
we
I
watched
thought.
it for this episode, that's the only time I've ever seen it. So,
Yeah.
but it was good. I'm interested in watching more.
Yeah.
So that's all I've got.
Okay. Well, jumping over to production details, again, like I mentioned earlier, there was not a whole lot, but I do have some. So, after Mission Impossible 3, Paramount had decided that they wanted to do a fourth film, and they wanted to bring back J.J. Abrams, who directed Mission Impossible 3, to direct Mission Impossible 4.
Sorry to
No,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off. Isn't J.J. Abrams like a pretty huge director?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But by 2009, Abrams had other commitments and he was unable to direct. So he stayed on as a producer. And by 2010, the studio brought on Brad Bird. Principal photography began on October 2010. Filming took place in Budapest, Mumbai, Prague, Moscow, Vancouver, Bangalore, Chennai, I'm not sure how you say that, and Dubai. The opening sequence where we find Ethan Hunt in the jail in Russia, I believe.
Yep.
That was shot on location. That was an actual prison.
In Moscow?
In Prague.
In Prague.
Yep. So it's not a functioning prison anymore. It's a former prison. But they did go to an actual former prison in Prague and shot the entire sequence there.
That's awesome.
Yes, I agree. Shooting concluded on March 19th, 2011. While filming, an IMAX camera was used for some of the shots, with the IMAX shots making up about 30 minutes of the film's total runtime. Brad Bird felt that at the time, Hollywood had become they had too much of an emphasis on using 3D cameras. So if you think back to the 2010, 2011, 2012 kind of era,
That was the thing.
that was the thing.
I remember seeing The Hobbit in 3D
Yeah.
and oh gosh, probably one of the Hunger Games movies. Because I remember I don't know why, but I would hoard my 3D glasses. I'd keep them
A lot of
afterward.
people did. I mean, and we'd usually pop out the lenses and then make them look like they were
Like nerd glasses.
Nerd
like,
glasses,
the
yep.
cringy, trendy
Yep.
nerd. I wore some of my 3D movie classes to our high school MORP because we were
You guys were
nerds.
nerds.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice.
MORP would be backwards prom for people who don't know.
Yeah. Instead of dressing up, you dress up in costumes.
Yes.
So anyways, yeah, that was the thing. And I am so glad that it is not a thing anymore because I felt like I got a headache every time I was watching a 3D movie. Like,
And it's significantly more expensive to see a 3D
yes.
movie.
Yeah. And I do agree. I felt like it was just too much of a thing because part of the problem was that whether it was a studio that was forcing directors to, build it into the film or, directors wanting to take advantage of the technology or whatever. There are some movies that today you watch back and there are certain scenes that are just kind of cringy. They don't really play very well because 3D technology never really took off because, let's be honest, it's not necessary. It doesn't really add anything to the entertainment experience outside of just being like, whoa, that's cool, but like,
Right.
who cares?
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
If it's a good movie, you don't need it in 3D.
right, exactly. So you have like this era of movies that you'll be sitting at home watching on the couch or whatever, and there's this one scene that was clearly made for 3D, and you're just like, okay, this is stupid, like, because it was made in slow-mo to emphasize it coming out at the TV, stuff like that. Like, I mean, it's whatever. It's fine. It's not a big deal, but I'm just glad that it ended and that 3D technology in the home never took off because 3D TVs were a big thing too. Like, that was the next big thing. Everybody's going to have a 3D TV, and it never took off. But anyways, so Brad felt that Hollywood had too much of an emphasis on 3D cameras at the time, And he felt that they needed to return to that feeling of spectacle and showmanship. So he was very intentional about integrating that into this movie, which I think he did phenomenal. He did a great job of doing that. There's so many shots that are just absolutely beautiful, breathtaking, dynamic, whatever you want to use. It's shot very well. It doesn't feel gimmicky, which often 3D movies feel that way.
Right.
And then last but not least, so we talked about Tom Cruise doing his own stunts earlier. And he was on the outside of the Burj Khalifa climbing it. However, he did not free climb it
Right. Yes. I probably should have mentioned that.
Like he did in the film. So he did actually climb on the outside of it, but he was secured by a harness with wires and whatnot, which were later painted out by our favorite production studio, Industrial Lights and Magic. And that is all I have. So, being that this is the first time you've ever seen a Mission Impossible movie just straight up, but also this movie, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, how would you rate it? Scale of 1 to 100.
I think I'm going to give it a solid 90. Maybe 92.
Okay. All right. Why'd you rate it as a 92?
Because I did like it a lot. I really enjoyed, like you had mentioned, like a lot of the camera work and the scenery, and I do really admire that like Tom Cruise did all of his own stunts and that there are pretty cool stunts. Action movies are probably my favorite genre of movies, and so I just really enjoy. I mean, I'll probably enjoy any action movie you put in front of me as long as it's not too like cheesy and just like a bunch of explosions,
Right.
So yeah. There was a reason I didn't go higher, and now I'm forgetting it. So maybe it wasn't as important as I was thinking it was.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll think of it and I can chime in later, but
sure.
But it's still in the 90s. I still did enjoy it. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I was actually thinking on the same exact score as you, a 92.
Oh.
This movie, I almost want to give it a higher a higher score, because I really do like this movie. I don't actually have any critiques that I can think of, at least not off the top of my head. But I think 92 is a good rating for it. It's a really solid film. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely nostalgic for me. I remember seeing it in theaters. It was a lot of fun because my parents had gone out. I think they were going out to dinner with some friends. And so it was me and both of my older brothers. And then we had 3 friends that went with us, Amanda, Cole, and Jonathan. And Amanda later ended up marrying my oldest brother. So she is our sister-in-law now. But I saw it with all of them. I think we went out to Pizza Hut and got food and then went to the movie theater and saw it. But I mean, when did it release? 2011?
Yes.
Okay. Which, that is so weird to me. So it's 2024 now. So that would have been 13 years ago. I'm going to be 26 next week. So I would have been 13. That absolutely blows my mind because it seems like it was literally yesterday. I remember going and watching it. It was so much fun. All of us came out of the theater. We're like, wow, that was really good. But I mean, that's crazy. Fun fact, this was actually the first Mission Impossible movie that I saw when I saw it all those years ago. I've since seen Mission Impossible 1, 5, and 6. I haven't seen 7 yet, but I have not seen 2 or 3 either. But anyways, yes, holds a special place in my heart. Obviously love Brad Bird. I think he did great work in this movie as his live action debut. I think he does great work in pretty much everything I've seen of his. But I love the story. I love the spectacle. It's a lot of fun. All around good movie. Solid 92.
I will say 2 things about this is off topic kind of, but about Ethan's wife.
Okay.
First, I think that I don't know. I just don't know how I feel. I don't like that there's no connection at the end besides them just like smiling at each other.
That is fair.
I think that was what I was thinking of before, like that I didn't give it a higher rating because I was kind of disappointed with that, honestly.
I remember the first time I saw it because I saw it in theaters, and like, so you get the revelation through the movie that like, oh, she's actually not dead, and that this was all done and that Ethan protected her. Like, and that's the big final reveal at the end of the film.
Yeah.
And then you actually see her. I remember seeing that, and I remember just being sad. I'm like,
I just can't
clearly
imagine.
love each other still,
Yeah.
you know, but this is just something for him where he's like, he has to love from a distance because he can't, because he doesn't want to risk her life or anything like that.
Yeah. So I understand it, but it just bummed me out, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
But this movie was ruined for me because I don't know if since we are not good people and we share accounts with family members when we shouldn't, but so I don't know if it was
That does not make us not good people.
I'm just
Come
kidding.
on.
I just know it's against the rules now for password sharing.
Yeah, for streaming. Yeah, who cares?
So anyways, I don't know if it was somebody else who was watching this movie that didn't completely finish it. So when we pressed play, it resumed from where it left off.
Yeah,
or
it didn't
if
give
it
us
was,
it didn't give us the option to restart from the beginning. So we had to press resume, and when we pressed resume, it started
literally
playing.
right when we pressed resume. The first thing that was said was Jeremy Renner's character saying, what did he say?
He was saying that, oh, so she didn't die.
Saying
your wife is actually alive.
Like you faked your wife's death. That's what it was. That's what he said. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I've never
literally
seen this movie. I had no idea that was a thing. And so.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. But
no, I just thought it was funny. I'm not that mad about it. It just.
I mean, I wish it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But
It's funny. I was actually I'm a first grade teacher for people who don't know. And I was just telling my first graders this week that one of the things that bothers me the most is when movie endings are ruined for me. Yeah. Like that is like, it just makes my skin crawl. Yeah. But honestly, like I still enjoyed the movie a lot, and it didn't ruin this for me, but
yes. And I think that's probably a testament to the film, right? Yeah. That the final big reveal of the movie was ruined for you like seconds before you were going to watch it from the start. Mm-hmm. And you proceeded to watch it from the start, and you still really liked it and enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think that's what makes a good film, right? Because if your film hinges entirely on this, like, oh, wow, this one plot device was used here, I can't believe it, but, like, it's not utilized in a way that moves the story forward. It's just like, oh, wow, I've never seen that before. Yeah. Well, then after you've seen it, it's not as special. Right. And, I mean, there are some movies that come to mind, but it's neither here nor there. The point is that even though this big reveal was spoiled, the movie's still really, really solid for you. Mm-hmm. And that you said you were disappointed still. Like, I was still disappointed. It's still, even though you knew that was the case, it still hit home. Yeah. Off topic again. Okay. Like really off topic, but still to this day, I'm a little salty with you for ruining something for me. Okay. Before John and I started dating,
I had never seen The Office before.
Oh, please.
And he would watch it in front of me sometimes.
Yeah,
And
because you didn't want to watch it. Or you're like, oh, I don't care. And so I would just watch it where I was at.
yes. So first episode you put on, I knew that Jim and Pam got together because I think it was one where they were already married or something. So
then
I never got to experience wondering if they're ever going to get together.
Yeah, but you got invested in it because you're like, oh, I don't care. And I started watching. And then you were like, oh, wow, this is pretty good. We should watch it from the beginning. And then, so it's kind of on you.
It is. I accept that. But yeah,
Anyways.
It's just an experience I'll never get to have.
Yeah. Well, let's steer this ship back on course.
Okay, so what were some of your favorite scenes in the movie?
I mean, I think obviously where Tom Cruise is climbing the Burj Khalifa.
I'm sure that's probably on everybody's favorite scene list for this movie.
That's probably the most memorable thing about this movie. I mean, it's such a spectacle to see. And being that Tom Cruise did his own stunts, you can actually see him doing it. And that's such a big deal because in so many films, the actors don't do their own stunts, which that's not a knock against actors who don't do their own stunts. I mean, it provides jobs for stunt performers. They're professionals who are trained to do these types of things. And so it's definitely not a knock against them. But what happens in the end product is that if it's like absolutely necessary to see the actor's face in that moment, then you have to either digitally add them in and take out the stunt performer and, put their face, the actor's face on the stunt performer or whatever. You have to do that, or you have to figure out a way to creatively hide the face, and you end up with a lot of like fast cuts and choppiness and whatever. And it feels so much more special and authentic. You're able to connect with the character when you can see them actually doing what you're believing they're doing.
Right.
And so that whole sequence in general is really, really, really cool and fun to watch. So I think that one goes without saying. I also really love the entire opening sequence, just with like being in the prison and everything. Like you don't really know what's going on. Why is Ethan Hunt in this prison? You're not even like introduced to him by name for the first probably 2 minutes. There's no dialogue.
Right.
It's him tossing a rock at a wall, which is actually pretty cool. Like he's literally bouncing a rock off a wall. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. It's like a bouncy ball. But anyways, you have that going on, and then it turns into a big prison break, which is coordinated by Benji, Simon Pegg's character. On the outside, he's unlocking all the cells, and it's in an effort to get Ethan out of the prison.
Right.
But you have this cool sequence where it's like this big fight, and they're playing Frank Sinatra over the speakers and everything. Like it's just a fun sequence. I think the sequence where Ethan gets picked up by, I forget what his title is, but he basically he runs IMF. He would be Ethan's boss. And that's where we're first introduced to Jeremy Renner's character. They're in the car, and then the vehicle ends up getting hit. And the director of IMF gets shot in the head. He's dead. And so Tom Cruise and Jeremy Renner's characters have to escape, and the car crashes into the river. And all these guys are just surrounded, shooting the car and the river and everything. And so you see Tom Cruise find one of the bodies. I think it was of the driver.
And a flare.
And he grabs the flare and puts it on him and just pushes him, and they all start directing their fire towards him. And then they swim away, which, I mean, really clever.
Right.
But anyways, just off the top of my head, those are some of the things that come to mind. Oh. And the big ending fight sequence where they're in the car carousel, vending machine, basically. And Ethan Hunt and the bad guy are fighting. He's trying to get the briefcase so he can stop the nuclear warhead from bombing.
Yeah, well, he stole a decent amount of mine, but I on the note of the beginning sequence in the prison break, I really liked that too, and I specifically liked the scene when Ethan Hunt is like trying to like going the complete opposite direction that Simon Pegg's character Benji wants him to go.
Yes.
And when he's kind of like arguing over the camera, like, you know, like just like standing his ground, you know, not turning around.
Funny because they're not talking to each other either.
Yeah.
And so he's just like looking at the camera and making arm movements and everything.
Right. Yeah. And you can tell that he is not going to back down, that he's just going to wait, and just I just liked that scene.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. He just basically gives him the silent treatment and just stands there and waits for him to finally give in. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I also like the scene when I don't remember where they're at, but when Jeremy Renner's character, what's his name?
I don't remember.
I don't either. When he grabs the gun from Ethan, like when Ethan pulls the gun out and like Ethan realizes that he has some sort of like background or like, I don't know, like.
Well, Ethan knew before that happened, and he pulled the gun out on him to basically show everybody else in the room what he knew.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in like a safe house because I don't remember exactly how it happened, or I don't remember what led up to it, but they were, they had to seek refuge. It might have been after, the whole Burj Khalifa sequence. I think it was.
Yeah, I think you're right. I can't remember.
Maybe not. I don't remember. It might have been before that. Regardless, that all went down, and Ethan knew that he was not just an analyst. He put together that Jeremy Renner's character was a field agent. Like, he definitely had field agent experience. Mm-hmm. And so he pulled a gun out on him, and he instinctively disarmed Ethan and got the bullet out of the chamber for the gun. And he's like, oh yeah, just an analyst, and got him to confess to everybody that he's not just an analyst, that he was an agent. And then when Ethan was gone, you get the revelation that, oh, hey, I was a field agent, and I was assigned to protect Ethan and his wife, and they were both murdered under my watch, and that's why I stopped being a field agent. And it's been haunting me ever since, until 2 days ago when I met Ethan Hunt, who was the man that I was assigned to protect. So he's actually still alive, and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There was another scene I was going to mention, and now I can't remember for the life of me what it was. So.
Yeah. No worries.
Sorry.
That happens. That's okay. So, was that it as far as your notes go, or what comes to mind?
Yeah. I wish I could remember. I don't know.
Okay.
It'll come to me like in the middle of the night while I'm sleeping, and I'll be kicking myself. But
okay. Well, no worries. That happens. I do think that I know I touched on it a moment ago, but that ending fight sequence where they're fighting, Ethan and the bad guy are fighting in the cars, or not cars, but like the car carousel vending machine thing, whatever you want to call it. That whole thing, that was super cool. And also very, maybe visceral is the right word, gritty. I don't know, but like it was very hardcore, and to the point where like Ethan Hunt got in a car and just drove it off and fell probably 5 stories to 7 stories, I don't know, and crashed the car so that he could get to the briefcase and disarm the nuke. Like, it was an intense fight, and it was well done. You could feel the struggle of the fight, which I've heard good directors and stunt performers say that the best fights in Hollywood are the ones where you can see the hero and or the villain struggle, like the character that you're supposed to be invested in the fight, you want to see them actually struggle, because that, gets you rooting for them, and it hurts. There has to be actual stakes in the fight. Otherwise it's just like, oh, everything's wonderful and like
they're invincible.
Right. Yeah. And so I do think that translates really well because it's already a high stakes situation, but like, the good guys are going to win. And so it's in movies like a Mission Impossible, where the whole idea is there are these unreasonably high stakes, but that there's going to be a resolution. There's going to be a happy ending. So how do you get your audience invested to feel those stakes and make them believe that they're real? Well, it's with sequences like this, where, it was brutal to watch. Just it happened because you're invested in all of this, and it's done really, really well. You feel every punch. It's brilliant filmmaking, brilliant directing and writing, and that's what has to happen in a movie like this, where the audience is banking on the good guy winning. You still want them to be rooting for them and not just passive in the sense of like, okay, let's get to the end, whatever. But
well, I remembered what scene I was going to say.
Okay.
I really like when they switch roles with the bad guys, I guess. Like when, I can't remember her character's name, but Paula Patton's character posing as like the assassin in the hotel. Is that it? Were they in a hotel? Or
Well,
were they? No, they were in
Burj
the.
Khalifa.
Yeah, they were still in the building.
Yeah. Which, they were hotel rooms, yes.
Yeah, and then like vice versa. Tom and Jeremy's characters, Tom Cruise and Jeremy Renner's
Right.
Characters posing as what would you call them? Like just
They were the bad guys. They were there to be buying the nuclear launch codes.
Yeah. So I also really liked that. I thought it was pretty tricky.
Yeah, well, it was cool to be watching those scenes happening
like simultaneously.
Right, exactly, because it was actually, I really liked that when you watch it, you see Tom Cruise and Jeremy Renner go into their room first, and based off of the real assassin, how she interacts with them is it Paula Patton? That's how she chooses to start her interaction.
Yeah, because she hears their interaction and
Right. She bases what she says off of her just to make it seem more authentic. I like kind of how that happens. And then you kind of see on both sides of it how it starts to derail and things are going wrong. And but I like that, like, Benji comes in and he's the server. You see him swap out the diamonds into the teacup and everything.
And brings them to the other room.
Right. And it's just like, it's cool to see like the whole picture kind of develop. But also when you like kind of step back and think about that going on, like in both instances, they are like flying by the seat of their pants. This is total improv. They are having to make it up as they go and bank on everything going right.
Yeah.
And it's not going right. Like the contact's getting messed up. It's taking too long. They're waiting for those nuclear launch codes to print. And so Paula Patton's character has to be kind of delaying and, so that they can get printed. And
that printer briefcase was pretty cool.
That was a cool gadget. Honestly, like, I like that they have some cool gadgets. None of them feel like they're like too out of this world.
Unrealistic, yeah.
But that's pretty smart. Like just a contact that will scan the document and then it prints off. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very applicable, useful. Yeah. But yes, I agree. I love that sequence. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have to go through the trouble of recreating an entire floor and
right. Yeah.
convince the bad guys that they're going to the right floor when they're actually not. That's pretty cool too. Again, high stakes. Everything's going wrong, and they only have seconds, minutes, whatever to get it done. It's pretty cool, pretty wild.
Yeah.
But Anyways, I'm assuming because you closed your laptop, that's all you got.
That's all I got.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have too. So thank you guys for listening this week. Had a lot of fun covering this movie. Next week, we are going to be covering The Sandlot. So we're going to be moving back over to sports. We haven't covered a sports movie since, I guess, the beginning of the season. We had Ford versus Ferrari. But we're going to be bringing a guest back into the studio. One of our favorites, our local sports movie, married to movies specialist, Jeff Strickland, our pastor. He's going to be back on the show again, and we're going to be covering an all-time classic with The Sandlot. So we're really excited about it. If you want to watch it ahead of time, it is streaming on Disney Plus, which I didn't realize that.
I didn't either.
But yeah, so if you want to watch it, go check it out on Disney Plus, and we will see you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.